Fantasy football is back, baby. From the long hours of draft day prep and the late night waiver wire moves to sacrificing quality time with family and friends, like sneaking away from a kid's birthday party when it's your own kid. It all might sound crazy to others, but to us, to win your fantasy league with a buddy of yours from high school, it's all worth it. That's why we do this. That's why we do this show, and that's why you need the Fantasy G.O.A.T.
Who starts? Who sits? And how to become the greatest of all time. This is the Fantasy G.O.A.T, sponsored by La Bonita Supermarkets.
Hello and welcome to the Fantasy G.O.A.T. I'm your host, Mike Davis, here with a great panel of fantasy football experts. Today joining the show, we have Ian Ritchie, co-founder of Full-Time Fantasy and a former #1 ranked fantasy player in the world. We have Mark Deming, co-founder of Full-Time Fantasy and another former #1 ranked fantasy player in the world. And joining us from Chicago, Dr. Nithin Natwa at Fantasy Docs on social media. So great to have you guys here with us. Let's kick these things off with fantasy players that we're continuing to draft ahead of week 1. I want to make sure we're focusing on drafting. So when it comes to strategy and drafting philosophy, where do we need to be this season? So what are you guys doing in your drafts? Ian, from a philosophical standpoint, what's your strategy you're attacking with?
I'm always a big believer in understand your rules, right? And understand the scoring rules you have. And so if you understand your scoring rules and you have a 4-point or 6-point quarterback touchdown, that really dictates where the quarterback goes. I'm a big believer in weight on the quarterback. And in the draft strategy I have, when it's a first come, first serve on your waivers, then I like to draft a very consistent team week in, week out. I don't take a lot of chances because I figure I'm going to be the first one to the waiver wire and be able to pick up any
right.
Really
to me this year, I mean, of course, it sounds like the quarterback strategy with that tier of 4 guys that are really run first and pass heavy guys, and Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, they seem like cream of the crop. Mark, are you in that same boat when it comes to quarterbacks? Or I know each and every league is different, but what's the strategy that you think most people need to know about?
My strategy this year is I'm attacking the teams with the great offensive lines. So you've got your Denvers, your Baltimores, your Buffaloes, and the teams that can protect the quarterback and make plays happen is underlooked strategy. But with so many people taking risks this year, I am focusing on what I know is going to happen.
That's a good thing. Doctor, where are you at with all this stuff? Because there always are a lot of unknowns, and to know the knows, that's a big thing. Where are you at when it comes to strategy?
Yeah, I think that offensive line thing is really important, especially with those two linemen. That one of them, he had that, I think, patella tendon rupture, unfortunately, and then the other one had a meniscus tear, but he's going to be back. So I think Atlanta has a little bit of downgrade there.
Okay.
Philadelphia luckily escaped. But I like taking a wide receiver and running back in those first 2 picks. And then if there's one of those top 3 tight ends there in that 3rd, 4th round, then I'll probably scoop one of them up. But otherwise, I'll go once again for the running backs and then hit it hard with the wide receivers in those middle rounds, because I think there's a ton of opportunity there. A lot of good wide receiver 2s that are plenty in those mid rounds, and I don't think there's that many running backs, at least that I know of, that I would pick in those middle rounds.
Yeah, and I think game theory and understanding who you're drafting with is so critical, because when you really do look at it, there aren't a ton of running backs who are cream of the crop, and wide receivers super, super deep. There's guys like Ricky Pearsall, who, I mean, is going way later, who could end up easily being a lot better than, an Xavier Worthy or even a Malik Neighbors. It just depends on how things shake out. So for you guys, I'm curious, Mark, Ian here, you guys as former #1 overall ranked fantasy football players on earth, so much of what your guys' success you've experienced has to be zigging when other people are zagging. Explain a little bit of that to us.
Yeah, I actually like a lot of the running backs later than I do the receivers. And so opposite Doc.
Really?
But yeah, I mean, look, I think you can get Nick Chubb late, who's going to start. We've talked about Mixon before the show started. You can get Nick Chubb late. You can get J.K. Dobbins. I know everybody's on R.J. Harvey, but at the end of the day, they trust veterans in pass protection. They trust veterans a lot in the season. So, I'm not afraid to take a Jerome Ford in the 13th round as a starter for 4 or 5 games to get me through. I like Nick Chubb. Mixon's going to be out. We think he's going to be out potentially all season long.
So you're okay with all that?
I'm okay with those guys.
Doctor, you want to chime in? I heard your voice. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds like that's a zero running back strategy going on there. And I mean, depending on it, yeah, I do agree that Mixon, it's not looking good for him. He had that list Frank injury back in 2020, and then they're being super vague about it in terms of what he's even dealing with right now. But they've already put him on IR, and he's been out for about 2 to 3 weeks before in the preseason. So they're basically anticipating it's a 7-week-long injury. There's not too many injuries that are like that, other than a midfoot sprain aggravation. So I think that Nick Chubb, the problem is he's also had a pretty significant injury history, but he's going to have his opportunity to prove himself because Mixon isn't going to be around for a while. I don't know, though. I get wary about waiting on running backs just because I feel like unless there's an injury episode, not too much changes there. And I like the wide receivers because wide receivers, it kind of seems more like opportunity. Sometimes a wide receiver will catch fire and then he just goes on a run.
Yeah, it really just depends.
Don't you think there's double risk at wide receiver, though? Because your wide receiver could get hurt, which hurts, obviously, and then he's out of the game. But your quarterback can also go down, which massively affects the value of the receiver.
Yeah.
So you almost have double injury risk when you take receivers early as opposed to just the running back and taking your handcuff later on in the 9th or 10th round.
It's an interesting point. Okay, guys, listen, from Breece Hall to Tyreek Hill and so much more after the break, we're talking about the players you need to avoid.
You're watching the Fantasy Go. Sponsored by La Bonita Supermarkets.
Sushi, I should say, at the gas station. Not the best idea. Best to avoid that spicy tuna roll. So what players do we need to avoid this season, Dr. Natwa? Tell us what you're staying away from, just like that spicy tuna roll at the gas station.
Yeah, before I want to talk about just how we mentioned quarterbacks are pretty heavily influencing the wide receivers, but then we got players like Devon Achane who doesn't do anything when Tua's not on the field. So I just had to point that out. Although he's not on my do not draft list, I do think that some of those running backs are pretty influenced by quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But in terms of do not draft, might seem obvious now, but a couple of weeks ago I was saying do not draft Mixon for reasons that are clear now. And Godwin is someone I'm really not high on, which also makes me super high on Igbuka and Evans because of that ankle dislocation. Honestly, those are career-altering injuries in a lot of situations, and it sounds like Godwin is not close to returning right now. So he's pretty much on my do not draft list.
Okay. Yeah,
similarly.
It's interesting because I can't believe Tampa Bay gave him that huge contract even after all of that stuff. And I know New England was interested as well. So it's a lot of good points there. Achane is somebody I always get very creeped out by just because, I mean, listen, he's a guy, especially in these PPR formats, he's very enticing. It looks like, Jennifer Aniston on the beach. You want it, but it could screw you up, because you never know which way this is going to go. Mark, who are some of the guys you're staying away from? Who are you avoiding?
This year in Miami, I'm avoiding Tyreek Hill. I've always been a Tyreek guy. He's just a physically imposing player who uses his body and speed to, wreak havoc. But this year he's coming in dinged up. There's a lot of disgruntled rumblings in Miami. And he seems like a player to me that's already peaked out, and I think that trying to educate
even
people
where
out
he's
there,
going, though, because I mean, listen, and I'm just making this argument because I got him in a couple leagues, but he was going first round, second round in a lot of these leagues in the past few years. Now he's fallen to the 4th or 5th round in some leagues. Is that still good value?
I mean, you're exactly right. For 2 years ago, a first round pick, and he has fallen. So if I'm trying to educate people, I'm letting you know out there, that's a guy that I think has already hit, and I'm staying off him this year.
Really? So what are we supposed to do in these circumstances when you're faced with a guy like Tyreek Hill? Because if he does bust out, he could be a league winner if you're getting him in the 4th round. So if you're faced with selecting a guy like that or Devontae Smith or something, because that's kind of the range we're getting into, you still have to go Hill over Devontae Smith, right? No?
I would take a younger upside receiver over Hill this year.
So, okay. Before we get to I just want to make sure we understand this. And Dr. Natwa, jump in if you want to. a lot of us were drafting in these leagues where, it's going by rankings. You're not even in person, and things are just going through the order of things. So you're saying, Mark, you're going to pass if Hill is ranked 34th on the thing. You're going to go down to 64 and take Ricky Pearsall a couple rounds earlier, and you don't care. Screw ADP, screw value. Is that how you think?
Yes. Football players, it can be short-lived sometimes. So Hill's hit his mark. I would take a younger, up-and-coming player over Hill.
How do we?
I think Hill's a disaster off the field too, and you have to take character into consideration when you're deciding what the future of your team's going to be. And to be honest, like he's saying, like you got to go with your gut sometimes. And when your gut is off a player, you just avoid him at all costs.
It's a total gut feel. And Mike McDaniel, which was the hot coordinator hired 2 years ago, sunglasses, he changed his look.
Off-white Nikes,
He's the first guy that probably could be fired this
So
year.
You're saying my philosophy is that he has so many kids to pay for, he needs to produce well on the field. You guys are not abiding by that. Okay, Ian, who's your guy that you're staying away from?
I'm off Breece Hall.
So, okay. Yeah, and this dude, I took him last year. Everybody's raving about him. And now, I can never take this guy again. I'm not going to be burned by him twice.
Yeah, I think he got two issues. I mean, well, three, really. The Jets are not a good football team.
Yeah.
Two, Justin Fields is going to run the ball some more, and he might steal some goal line carries and some keepers. And three, the guy behind him is a better player than he is, Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen is better than Breece Hall. And so the best thing that Breece Hall owners who already drafted him can hope for is a trade. And if you drafted Breece Hall and Braylon Allen is on the waiver wire and you have the opportunity to pick him up, you got to grab him now. Because Braylon Allen by mid-year will end up with more touches, more carries, and he's just a better player.
Okay, so a lot of iffy things there in New York.
Something else I heard about. Yeah, something else I heard about Breece is that they said that last season his knee injury was hurting him more than he let on and all of that. And usually after that, they follow up by saying that, he's really good this season, but they didn't follow up with that kind of language. They just said, oh, yeah, last season his knee was a little bit worse than we thought. And then there was no reassuring news after that, which was kind of interesting in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm staying.
And I like how Mark said he would go with the younger wide receiver who has more upside, but didn't specifically commit to Devontae Smith. But I agree with what he's saying.
Hey,
because then you talk about Pearsall, and Pearsall is, I would definitely rather take Pearsall.
People like Pearsall, a mecca as well, especially with everything you're saying in Tampa Bay with Chris Godwin. Guys, still to come. We got sleepers and league winners, so don't go anywhere. The Fantasy GOAT. We'll be right back after these words. Who's the top choice this year in fantasy football? Well, the consensus says Cincinnati's wide receiver Jamar Chase. Now, Chase led non-QBs in scoring last year, having a monster year with 17 TDs and 1,700 yards, I should say. Now, even if he regresses, he's still a clear-cut choice for the number one overall pick, and that's why he's our pre-draft commissioner's choice here on the Fantasy GOAT. And now for the commissioner's choice of the week from La Bonita, let's go shopping. This season on the Fantasy GOAT, we're partnering with La Bonita Supermarkets. I'm here at the location in Green Valley with my good buddy Armando. I'm so excited to talk to you. Each and every week, fantasy football, it's about making the right choices, the right selections, and you guys have a lot of good selections. This week, our commissioner's choice from La Bonita, what is it going to be?
So this week for the commissioner's choice, we definitely don't want you guys drafting hungry. We have our La Bonita store-made tortilla chips on sale for $2.99. And the store-made guacamole, we make it every day in every store for $6.99 a pound for this week for the commissioner.
That's a sleeper special, chips and guac, that's the best thing. Now listen, this is only my second time at La Bonita. As you can see, I'm very excited. You guys have already changed my life. What is the thing that separates you from every other supermarket?
I think when you walk into any La Bonita, you'll see a lot of departments. It's like a food hall, it's a marketplace, it's a mercado. So everything's made inside the stores. We have the tortilleria behind us. We make everything from scratch. Find the deli section with carnitas, chicharrón, guacamole, ceviches. We have a restaurant, a taqueria, where you can find authentic Mexican food. So that's what really separates us, Mike. I think we make everything in store still.
And don't sleep on the smoothies and the juices. I can attest to this. Amazing. Now, last thing, how many locations do we got? How can we connect with you guys at La Bonita?
We have 7 stores valley-wide, an 8th store coming soon. You can find all the locations at bonitamarkets.com. Follow us on social. and visit us soon.
All right, have a wonderful Labor Day weekend. Have a great draft party. Make sure you draft well, and make sure you come get the Commissioner's Choice this week. We'll see you all season long here, La Bonita Supermarkets on the Fantasy Goat.
You're watching the Fantasy Go, sponsored by La Bonita Supermarkets.
It's paramount to fantasy football success. No, I'm not talking about good Wi-Fi. I'm talking about sleepers, and this season is now different. There's a ton of sleepers that are going to set you up for success. So, Mark, I want to go to you first. You said to me earlier before we even started taping, you've done about 70 drafts so far. I can't imagine you have a personal life currently. Tell us your top sleeper you're targeting in all these drafts. Who is it?
All right, my top sleeper this year is Jerry Jeudy out of
Really?
Cleveland. And I'm not afraid of Joe Flacco. And only two receivers, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, had more receiving yards than Jerry Jeudy from November to the end of the season last year. And that's the fact that a lot of players don't know. Stefanski, the head coach of Cleveland, handpicked Jeudy, traded for him. He wants a number one wide receiver, and he's going to utilize him. And I think Jeudy is the equivalent of a teacher's pet and is going to have a big fantasy.
And you're not scared of all the bad stuff coming out of Cleveland. It's kind of like everything from Shador to the issues with Quinshon Judkins and now Isaiah Bond, all the legal issue. You're still bought in.
So you mentioned previously about zigging and zagging. I'm zagging to Cleveland.
Can you give us an answer of just like who's a guy you're taking Jerry Jeudy over who? Like, give us an example of a guy.
Tyreek Hill.
I'm not doing that. I'm telling you, I'm not doing that.
He's a Jeudy truther. So
Yeah. But listen, he was on a heater at the end, so it's kind of interesting stuff. Ian, what about you? Sleeper, give us one guy who you're thinking.
I got a young guy, Carolina, Tet McMillan.
Yes.
6'4", out of Arizona. I had the benefit of watching a lot of West Coast football, being on the West Coast. They play a lot of night games. It's so hot
He's
in Arizona.
Mike Evans-ish.
He's Mike Evans-ish.
Especially for a Dave Canales.
He has an unbelievable skill set that translates to the NFL with one-on-one balls, much like a Dunazay. We've talked about Dunazay.
You like Bryce Young.
I like Bryce Young a lot more than most people, and if they're trailing games, they're going to throw a lot. And Tet McMillan's going to have a lot of big games, and he is a one-on-one dominator. He can make one-on-one catches all day, and they will challenge him downfield and throw downfield to him, and you can expect big numbers from Tet McMillan this year.
And Thielen's out now, too, so it's Coker, really, and T-Mac, who are going to be the two big guys. Real quickly, Dr. Natwa, tell us your one big sleeper you're targeting in every league.
I'm going to go along with the rookie wide receiver trend and call out Matthew Golden. I like him in Green Bay. And I think that Jane Reed's playing on a fracture that he shouldn't be trying to play on, and he's not really going to be a great performer. And it's going to give Golden a lot of chances to establish a good rapport with Jordan Love and take over.
Okay. Yeah, he's a burner who can also catch the ball.
I like that.
And there's a lot of good news coming out of Green Bay right now, so we'll see what that's all about. But, guys, there's still more Fantasy GOAT to enjoy. What's the best way to become the GOAT this season? Well, it's to get a league winner. Our experts are shelling out their favorites after these words.
You're watching the Fantasy GOAT, sponsored by La Bonita Supermarkets.
Welcome back to the Fantasy GOAT. Well, I'm here with Mark, Ian, and Dr. Natwa. Guys, let's talk league winners. Ian, who's the one guy who's going to lead teams to a fantasy football championship this year? Because one guy could change everything.
One guy changes everything, and I'm really high on him, and I'm curious what Doc's going to say when I say the name Christian McCaffrey. I know that he's overlooked. I know that he's lasting until the end of the first round. I believe wholeheartedly, if he stays healthy, he'll be the number one scoring player in fantasy this year. I think the injuries they have at wide receiver means he's going to get a lot more catches, so especially in a PPR league, he can absolutely dominate this year, and I think the San Fran's going to really lean on him hard.
Yeah, San Fran missing Ayuk. They shipped out Deebo Samuel. I mean, Kittle and McCaffrey can have major years, especially, we've spoken about Ricky Pearsall as well. Doc, jump in here with us and tell us what your thoughts are. But I'm curious, before we even go to Doc, Ian, are you taking McCaffrey over, Saquon? Are you taking him over an Ashton Genty? Where would you take him in that first round?
Well, I think you take him where you think you can get away with taking him, right? And most people overlook him, so you can wait. And if you're in the middle of the first round pick, if it was me and I had to take him somewhere, I would take him number 1 because I think he's going to be the highest.
You would take him first overall.
I think he's going to be the highest scoring player in fantasy football this year. I really do.
You're taking him over Jahmyr Gibbs, over Saquon Barkley, over Jamar Chase.
Yes.
This is why this show is amazing, Doctor. Tell us your league winner and give us a little bit of a feedback on the C-Mac stuff.
I love him because you can also have a definite handcuff who you know is going to perform at a high level. And whenever KW9, Kenneth Walker, is on the field, he's a home run threat. And he can take it to the house. And he's put up running back 1 numbers overall, even with missing multiple games throughout the past couple seasons. I'm putting my chips on him being healthy throughout the season and going the way. But I do love the CMC pick. I wouldn't take him first overall because he does have some injury risk, but Achilles tendonitis, people get worried that it's a chronic lifelong condition. It can get better. It can heal completely. And in a lot of cases, it does. I think last season, it was just within the same season. He ended up getting some treatment that takes months to have effect. But I love CMC. I would take him any pick after the 4th pick.
Okay. All right.
I like
there you
that,
go.
Doc. Thanks, Doc.
All right. And real quickly, we got to wrap things up. But Mark, tell us your league winner. I'm curious where you're going. Is it Jerry Judy? It's not Jerry Judy.
All right. Do yourself a favor if you have the latter pick in your draft.
Yeah.
And take Brian Thomas Jr. as your league winner. Only Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson had more receiving yards than Thomas last year. He's from LSU. He has all the pedigree. Chase, Jefferson. People are taking Malik Neighbors. I like Brian Thomas Jr. better. I think
you're not scared with Travis Hunter, any of that stuff, regression.
I think that Travis Hunter can't hold a candle to Brian Thomas Jr. He's a number 2. Just put it that way.
Okay. Look at all the interesting insight we've got in here. 2 great former number 1 fantasy football players on earth in Ian and Mark. Thanks so much for being here, guys. And, of course, make sure you always go to check out @FantasyDocs on all your social to keep up to date with the latest from Dr. Natwa. Thanks so much for joining us here. I'm Mike Davis. Good luck with your drafts. We'll see you next time here on the Fantasy GOAT.